Strong players buff weak characters, he said. This is crazy. Hey, yo, what up, JVA Nation? This be your boy Bedtimebuddy, and we got a special cameo by Miss AmethystLady's bug right here. Today we're gonna do a little Crucible video. We're gonna do a 5-point breakdown of changes that I would like to see. I was in one of the streamers chat the other day, and the devs were in there taking questions, and they said, I asked if I could do a video kind of explaining what kind of changes I would like to see for Shakirri, and they told me to go for it and drop it in the Reddit and all that good stuff. So here we go. If you guys want to check out some of our gameplay, we'll be uploading gameplay on this channel and doing special videos like top 5s, changes, reviewing patch notes, etc. Like all of that stuff. If you like couples channels and you like Crucible content, then you can follow this channel. We're gonna be we got a couple ideas down the pipeline for this channel or whatever. So even though this is a new channel, this is definitely not a one-off video, and expect consistent uploads from me and Miss AmethystLady on this channel for Crucible. The first thing I'm gonna touch on is Shakirri's role. So the devs made mention of her having to really pick her spots with when she enters a team fight, since she doesn't have a whole lot of mobility and stuff like that, and which has been something that a lot of the player base has been complaining about. I'm thinking that she's either gonna be somewhere in between, like a utility type, supporty type character, an assassin, or a bruiser. But within those confines, there's like some streamlining that needs to be done, like within her kit, so she can fit into those particular roles. So if she's more utility based, you would expect her to have more disrupts, crowd control, things of that nature, or add things to the team fight, take away things from the team fight for the enemy team, so on and so forth. If she's an assassin, you would expect her to have more closing damage, more closing burst, to be able to finish off weak targets or make targets weaker so that they're easier to kill, right? If she's a bruiser, then you would expect her to have things like shields and stuff like that, to have like a more sustained battle when she's in position, like the position that she wants to be in, right? So what is Shakirri's role? That's a really important question. Just a little bonus question: after you melee somebody, are you 0? Are you +5? Are you +10? And for those of you who don't know about frame data, this basically determines like who gets to act first after some said action. So after you melee your opponent, how soon, like who gets to act first, who gets to make a move first. And if it's Shakirri, then that's going to really come into play with her cancels. If it's the opponent, then that's just not cool. It's not cool. We land the melee and be punished by being negative. Talking about cancels and things of that nature. So Shakirri can cancel her sword swipe, right? So as most of you know, since you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you're a Shakirri player. You know, if you hold her sword button, then you get 2 sword swipes. 2 sword swipes does 130 damage, but you can cancel the first sword swipe. Actually, let me demonstrate here what it's like when you cancel the sword swipe. So let me leave this party right quick. By Miss AmethystLady. So sword, you got sword for 130 damage. You can cancel the first swing of sword into a smack. That's for 145 damage. You have sword shot, in which is 120 damage. Unless you land a headshot, then it's 175 damage. A caveat to this is that smack has a cooldown. This is the fastest you can smack back to back. Smack does 80 damage. Now, if you do sword smack, you can't do sword smack again because it's still on cooldown. So you would have to do sword smack, sword, right? And then you have access to sword smack again. Now, mind you, sword smack is 145, sword is 130. So this disincentivizes you doing sword unless you're negative when you smack. If you smack someone and you're negative, then you're not going to want to do sword smack unless you're going for closing burst, in which in those cases, if you're going for closing burst, you're going to want to backpedal and do sword switch gun if you can get the headshot. If she were able to cancel the second swipe into melee, then that would improve her damage, because then she'd be able to sword melee, in which would come out to about 210 damage. It'd be like sword smack, but you can't cancel the second swipe, or you can cancel the first one. So that might be by design, like that might be intentional, but that will be a very easy way to improve her damage while keeping her skill cap in place without changing her numbers. Just allow her to cancel a little more seamlessly, to where she can like sword switch gun while backpedaling without having that lag. after the sword, or sword smack switch gun. Seamless, you know. Then that would make her gameplay a lot more like, it'll keep the level of difficulty without having to change the numbers, but allow her to get 2 more damage per second by allowing her to switch between the gun and the sword a lot more seamlessly. So next we got the Disrupting Strike. So Disrupting Strike has a really big issue, in which is when your opponent is in on you, or if you're in on the opponent, regardless of how long the battle goes, if you're in each other's face, or you trap the sniper, or you have Drakal in your face, it's going to be hard for you to get to your Disrupting Strike in the middle of your exchanges. Now, a workaround is to aim at the floor. If you aim at the floor, then your Disrupting Strike is kinda in place. It's not all the way in place, but it's a lot better than just taking the big giant leap all the way across the map. So if Drakal is chasing you and you're in, like, he's in your face, you could like sword smack backwards, switch gun, and then switch aim at the ground, and then Disrupting Strike. In my opinion, it would be a lot better if she had control over when she releases the strike. As in, if you tap the button again, tap, I can do that Disrupting Strike here in place without having to look down at the ground. Sometimes you need to cut that thing short, or your opponent repositioned, or whatever the case. You're not going to get a 180. You can get like, you know, like 1/4 of the way around, but you're not going to get a 180 during your jump. So let me cut it short by tapping the button again. Let me cancel it into a quicker landing, so that way I can do tap when they're right in my face, and I don't lose my Disrupting Strike just because my opponent is close to me. You see what I'm saying? Like, if I'm flanking the enemy, I might not want to initiate with this Disrupting Strike, depending. If it's a squirrel, I might want to strike him a few times first, see where he goes, then Disrupting Strike him. You know? Next is if there was a reward for sustained battle. So if she had a proc, say, for landing 3 or 4 melee strikes in a row. So if you did sword proc. So like on the 4th sword, she would get some type of bonus damage, like just for landing 4 successive strikes, and the opponent not like getting out of her sword range, because there's a lot of mobility in this game, so people can get out of her sword range and then start like ranging her out. But if Drakal is in on her, you can't rely on just sword to be able to keep up with Drakal. Sometimes the numbers would suggest something like that, but when you look at just the way that Drakal's kit works, he just kind of dumps more damage on you before you can respond, right? Which I can get into those numbers in another video if y'all want me to. I can tell you guys all the numbers of the different combinations of like sword smack, sword, and backpedal shots, and like all of that stuff. The different combinations, like all in, you can like all in for 500, so on and so forth. I can get into that if y'all need me to. Yeah, if she had like some kind of a proc that would improve her damage, it would obviously have to be a perk of some sort that's like, you know, you landed a certain amount of strikes, then you get the proc from the perk. Or something like adding vulnerable, like you strike somebody 4 times and then on the 4th strike they become vulnerable. Or like, say you shoot someone and your next sword strike, like say like shooting them adds a proc that empowers your sword strike depending on how many times you shot them. So that way, if like Drakal's running you down and you shoot him 1, 2, 3 on the way in, and now when you switch the sword, he has a 3-hit proc that's on him that's empowering your sword strikes for some set amount of time, or for your very first sword strike. You know what I'm saying? So that way she gets the burst damage. You know what I mean? I think having some type of a proc that encourages players to use both the sword and the gun combat would be very helpful for her and her kit. Next, her synergy. So her kit synergy is a bit of a issue because her shield relies on the opponent to make a mistake in order to be able to return damage. I think that if her shield gave her an actual shield, as in like on her health bar, say like a 300 shield or something like that, like Drakal always has 1100. He has a lot more mobility, he has a lot more damage. But if her shield gave her a 300 shield and allowed her to get to that 1100 where Drakal is, then she'd be able to like sustain herself a lot better in those battles. The thing is that if you have a shield that does 300 shield plus reflect, it might be OP, right? But the thing is that right now there's a lot of matchups where her shield does nothing but block. It doesn't return any damage. So either A, it should be able to reflect some of those damages, like you'll see in the clip from the beginning of the video. If I were able to deflect the electricity from the flower and the squirrel's shots, because he didn't stop shooting into the reflect for some reason, then the squirrel might have died because, you know, the flower does a lot of damage. But Shakirri is helpless against the flower, because though you can block it, it might be zapping you from a certain angle, and then you take all the damage anyway. But there's also no benefit to blocking it, because you can't return damage during that time period unless somebody is shooting something that's reflectable. So you're really just a shield, but you're not a long shield. So like Rahi is gonna out laser your shield if he just keeps the laser on you, or Summer's just gonna out burn the shield. If you keep the shield up, your shield's long gone and she's still burning you, and then you die anyway. Or like Drakal's just gonna swing at you, your shield's there, he's not gonna stop swinging at you, he's gonna keep swinging at you. And then the other cast that the shield does work against, they're just gonna stop shooting you for a little while and just run away until the shield is down, and then they're gonna go back to beating you up, right? So there's like a issue with her synergy, her kit synergy, because I discourage you from shooting me. Okay, stop shooting me. Now we're hitting each other again, right? So I might as well have skipped that whole phase unless I know that you were overextended. But if you're as good as I am, you're not gonna make that mistake. You're just gonna stop, or you're gonna melee me or something, you know? So it's just not synergized. It's just not synergized. And then like the shield is like effective at breaking up the battle, but it doesn't add anything to the team. So sometimes you trap people and they just beat you up anyway. Like you trapped your call, he beat you up anyway, and you wasted some precious seconds that you could have been fighting him trying to trap him. If you're playing against the squirrel, they put the smoke up. Now you don't know where the squirrel's at. If you're playing against Mendoza, they throw the grenade at you, you can't see. If you're playing against Summer, she's just gonna burn you, so you gotta like dance in and out of the barrier. Not to mention, while she's trying to burn you, she's also burning the barrier, so the barrier is gonna die. And like the trap was inefficient, being either you used it for escape or to single her out in a one-on-one combat. And you would think that if she's intended to be a bruiser, she would be highly effective at the one-on-one combat, particularly in the barrier. A way to improve this would be to give her benefits for putting the person in the barrier. So maybe the silence should be moved from the disruptive strike over to the barrier. If that was the case, she would be more of like a bruiser or an assassin by way of trapping somebody in there and cutting off their abilities, right? Or you can give her like everybody that's like opponents that are in the barrier could have vulnerable. That would lend itself to her being an assassin. Or say enemies that are in the barrier do less damage. That would be a more utility based effect of the barrier. Or say teammates that are in the barrier do more damage. Or, you know, there's like a lot of ways that you can kind of like apply buffs and debuffs into the barrier in ways that lends itself to what her intended playstyle is. If she's an assassin, she needs to be able to do more burst damage on her singled out weak target. It just makes sense. But if she's not an assassin and she's utility, then she needs to actually offer utility, shields, speed boosts, debuffs, speed debuffs, stuns, snares, longer duration silence, things of that nature. If she's a bruiser, she needs more sustain in the battle. She needs more shields, more health, more striking damage, things of that nature, or something that will make up for it, you know. And then go back to assassin play. That's where like procs come into play. You know, you come up behind someone, they don't know you're coming, shot, they got a 2-shot proc, and then you slice them. Then they try to run away, and then you disrupting strike, you stay on top of them, they're silenced, then you hit them 2 more times, and that's a really rough time for the opponent. It's their job not to leave themselves open from the flank when they know that she's on the other team. Makes sense to me. The last thing that I wanted to touch on was her cooldowns. So a lot of people have been talking about her disrupting strike and the ability to escape with it. Now, escaping with disrupting strike may not be intended because the dev said that she's more of an all-in type character. If she's all in, then the disrupting strike is intended as an initiation tool. And then if she's going to get out, she's going to like split everybody up with a barrier, then move around, so on and so forth, reposition, and then re-engage, you know, yada, yada, yada. You know, you play it with your brain, you know what I mean? Like shots until you find a good opening, or flank around till you find a good opening, silence somebody, beat them up, trap them, beat them up some more, so on and so forth. Now, for reasons I just explained, it doesn't work out that way because, you know, you get blinded or whatever the heck after you know, barrier somebody in, or Mendoza just runs around your perimeter and you can't like stick your damage on them. But that's in theory, that's the way that thing should work for Kiri. So I think that if her cooldowns were lower with the jump, it would enable more mobility, and then maybe she'd be a little more competitive with other characters' mobility. However, I think that there's other things that you can do, like playing with her silence duration and stuff like that, to keep people from being able to move away from her, or to reward her for landing the disruptive strike. That brings up the idea of the strike to the heart. So like, strike to the heart does 1500 damage over 3 minutes. We did the math. It kind of came down to like 8.5 damage per second. If strike to the heart did a flat bursty amount of damage, then it would fit more into the assassin role. Now there are times when your opponent bleeds out from the strike to the heart, but only really when somebody's chasing them because they can't afford to stop and heal. Bleeding does suck though, but wouldn't it be better if it applied like a big burst of damage and vulnerable, or like the 8.5 damage proc plus vulnerable, so that way when you silence them, your follow-up sword or sword smack or shots did a bunch of bonus damage, and like it really sucks to get hit with that leap. You know, like it just sounds like it would be so much better. You wouldn't have to make it stronger than 80 damage per disrupting strike, but you could improve the perk to make it so that it applies vulnerable, and then everybody now hits that target harder and they're silenced. You see, it's just like, it really, again, it goes back to, it depends on what the role is. So anyway, so just like a quick review, first we need to identify what type of character she is. If she's like a quality life type, supporty type character, then help her out with the cancels. You know, let her do sword cancel smack. Let her do sword switch gun, or sword smack switch gun. Like, let it be seamless without the lag. This right here should be on all of her stance cancels. That would just make it so much better. Allow her to be able to cancel the disrupting strike, or cut it short, so that way when people close on her, she can actually still use the disrupting strike. Explore the possibility of allowing some type of a proc, or if we're talking utility, you know, maybe add a silence to the dome, or improve the heal if you take that perk, or buffs and debuffs while the person is trapped inside of the dome with you, so that way you have an advantage when you're in the dome. Sometimes you trap people in the dome and you feel like you're at a disadvantage. If she's an assassin, she needs more closing burst damage, so maybe additional percentage damage when she's fighting against weakened foes. Maybe the shots applying the mark. Maybe enemies taking bonus damage while the disrupting strike is on cooldown. If she's more of a bruiser, then maybe the shield should actually give her some shield. You know, maybe she should be able to shield and strike at the same time, that way she can block and strike. Or maybe the reflect should work against more things. If the bug has flowers, Shakirri can't fight. So, but if there's flowers, but she could reflect the flowers on like the zap onto nearby targets, then maybe she'll have a fighting chance. You know, there's no reason why a bug should come from all the way across the battlefield, fly over her head, drop the poop on her, put the flowers, and she's stuck in the poop and the flowers, and she's done. There's nothing she could do. You don't got disrupting strike, you're dead. A lot of this stuff I can elaborate on. I really want to know about the plus frames from the melee attack. So if anybody has the answer to that, please drop that in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you check out the Miss AmethystLady YouTube channel. This is JVA Nation. We'll be doing a lot more content like this. A lot more rants, top fives, all type of stuff for Crucible. We like the game a lot. We played the game a lot. We have well over like 60, 80, 100 hours already in this game. We stay up playing it till 4 in the morning every day. So we like this game a lot. We plan to support this game. Okay. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit up Miss AmethystLady on Twitch, and we'll be doing content together on this channel. This is a new channel, a new project for us. We do have our individual channels, but this is where we'll be doing a lot of Crucible stuff, as well as like couples content and stuff like that, you know, for those of you that like that type of stuff. But anyway, thank you guys for checking out the video. I'll catch y'all around later.